Good evening. Welcome to BMFSC TUT's very first Women's Business Seminar. Ladies, we have made it. I'd like to say to all the ladies, Happy Women's Month. And since today is the last day of the Women's Month, we'd like to say, Igama lama khosikazi, malibongwe. I'd like to introduce all the facilitators for today. Our facilitators for today is myself, Lebogang Rampa, and my portfolio is as follows. I am the Deputy Secretary of the BMFSC TUT Pretoria. And I'll be followed by my fellow subcommittee member, Mrs. Faith Matlo Matiani, who is our subcommittee member, along with our very own Makosazana Lady, Ntetwa Nyambose, who is our Deputy Secretary of the PSSCC Gauteng. Today, our theme will be grooming young women into leadership excellence of business. And thank you. Take it over, Nyambose, and explain further on the theme of today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lebogang Rampa. Greetings to you all and our fellow panelists. Today's topic will be based on grooming young women to become leaders of excellence in business. So what we will be discussing today actually is how to build each other as women in order to be better, how to build each other as women in order to be able to take over those positions and lead, because as we all know, females are in the majority, but then leadership positions that are being, what can I say? Leadership positions that are being facilitated by females are actually very few. So now what is it that we need to fix as women? What is it that we need to check? What is it that we need to focus on as women? Because honestly speaking, it's not that we do not have the capabilities, we are not capable, but I feel like there's some of the things that we need to fix we ourselves as women so that we can be able to lead further. So that's why today we are having this topic. So before we go forward, I would like to adopt our program, of which will be as follows, of which is the opening by Ms. Lebogang Rampa. And she has already introduced herself, is the Deputy Secretary of the TUT branch. And I will be facilitating with Ms. Matlo Matiane, of which is part of the subcommittee in the TUT branch as well. We have had our opening and I have adopted the program. And after that, we will be having our keynote speaker, of which is the BMF chairperson, Ms. Mpho Museki, BMF Mother Body. And we will be having question and answer session, and we'll be having a word of support by Mr. Itumeleng Mavuso, which is the former Secretary of the Gauteng PSCC, and we will have vote of thanks and closing. So back to you, Ms. Lebogang Rampa.
Yes. And I'll be reading the following of Mpho Museki's chairperson of Gauteng Province Black Management Forum's biography. And it goes as follows. Ms. Mpho Museki has a very impressive biography business profile. Mpho Museki holds a BSc engineering degree in mineral processing and a master in industrial engineering from the University of Witwatersrand. She has a master in philosophy in development and finance at Stellenbosch University. She has previously worked in the mining industry and production on process management. She is completed Women on Boards training and is a member of the Institute of South Africa's Directors. Now, she is a very impressive woman who is very passionate about mentoring young people. And it is evident as she is now inspiring us with the knowledge and giving us the tool on how to become leadership of excellence in the business world. Thank you very much. And help me welcome Ms. Mpho Museki.
Good evening. I think that's my cue to start. Am I right? Great. Thank you, Lohang, for your warm words of welcome and taking people through my profile. I thought we had agreed that you're not going to read some of the stuff, but it's all well and good. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge our BMF leaders and leaders of society that are present on this webinar, or protocol observed. To the Chief Student Chapter Leadership, thank you so much for inviting me to speak on such an important topic. It does me a great honor. This topic is very critical. The World Economic Forum 2020 Global Gender Report, which compares national gender gaps on economic, education, health, political criteria, projects that it will take on average 99.5 years to close the overall gap in the global gender gap. So now I'm not sure how many of us in this session will still be alive. But what it means is that if we don't consciously and deliberately do things that accelerate the closing of this gap, any male child born today is born with an advantage. And reading through the report, the main contributor to this reprehensible number is the lack of progress in the closing of the economic participation and opportunity gap, which the report states if the world continues at the current pace experienced over the period of 2006 to 2020, it'll take 257 years to close this gap economic participation and opportunity. This is very worrying. And it's worrying because all levels of women empowerment and socioeconomic inequality are listed as some of the drivers of gender-based violence. Could I ask that we all mute? I'm hearing feedback. I think I also want to link this data or statistic to what has been just recently released in South Africa, which is the Commission of Employment Equity report. The 20th report paints a bleak picture of the state of women leadership in corporate SA, with only 24% of women being in top management and 34% in senior management. Now, this picture gives impetus on why we need to groom young women and why young men must be part of the conversation. As you know, the men that are in positions now also have a role to play in making sure that opportunities are open for. So for this topic, I'm going to share my thoughts in what I think works based on my experience in corporate. First, as someone who was once a young woman who required grooming, and second, as someone who has led people and groomed one or two young women into achieving some career milestones. I'm going to focus on three important actions that I think are fundamental for success at any stage of life. While these are based on corporate experience, these are universal principles that one can apply even by entrepreneurs. So the first principle that I think is critical is self-awareness. And I think it's important because it's what helps you to continuously improve. Importantly, part of self-awareness is for one to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself, be honest about your abilities, about your interest and capacity. If you're not, you will find yourself making unrealistic goals that will spiral you into a rabbit hole. When you know yourself, your purpose is clearer and your goals become attainable. I think being self-aware is not only about self, it's really also about being aware of your environment, because people don't exist in a vacuum. Part of being a successful leader is about understanding the impact that your actions have on other people and on your environment. This becomes quite important as you move from being a manager of self, which I think as a student, one should be able to manage self because you've got deadlines that you need to meet, you've got projects that you need to submit, you need to study for your exams, and that requires being able to manage your time, managing yourself. So as you move from manager of self to manager of people, and you deliver through people, being aware of your environment and impact that you have on people is quite critical. And as part of self-awareness, I want to touch on the concept of work-life balance. Often people would lament on work-life balance without first defining what balance is to them. For me, this work-life balance depends and it changes. My definition of work-life balance changes on where I am in life, what stage I'm in my life, what milestones I want to achieve in relation to my environment. So I mean, based on my profile, you would understand that I am a scientist. So I look at balance as finding equilibrium. And I'm going to make an analogy around a chemical reaction. So if you think about a chemical reaction and what is required to maintain equilibrium, you would know that to maintain equilibrium, you only maintain equilibrium when one side of the equation changes, is to apply equal change on the other side. So to maintain equilibrium, you would need to apply the same type of change on both sides of the equation. So the one side of the equation is work in this instance, when you talk about work-life balance, and the other side, you should put support structure in place of life. So you've work-life balance, but instead of life, this is your support structure. And these are your family, your friends, and any person you would need to help you on your life journey. So if work pressure increases, and work pressure is anything to do with studies, with actual work if you are employed, or actual work or deliverables if you're an entrepreneur where you need to source business and you need to work hard to make sure that your business is successful. So when that pressure increases, you would need to apply an increase of support from the other areas of your life. For young people without kids, it would also entail asking your friends for a bit more understanding, because you won't be available for a few weeks. It means you might have to miss someone's birthday party. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. And for people who are married with children, it means just asking for extra support from your husband for that period of time where you are going through that change and you are seeking to attain equilibrium or balance. And another reason why I think equilibrium is a better expression than balance is the application of Le Chatelier's principle, which states that changes in the temperature, pressure, volume, or concentration of a system will result in predictable and opposing changes in the system in order to achieve a new equilibrium state. So I did say that my engineering, I had to study chemistry as well up to third year. So I fall back to those principles when I think of life. And I really like Le Chatelier's principle because it references a system. As a person, you're a system operating within a system. And it also talks about the fact that when change happens, you have to find or attain a new state of equilibrium. I think often people make the mistake of wanting to maintain status quo, even when things have changed, when there's pressure, when there's temperature, when there's volume, when the system has changed, concentration has changed, but people then want to force to stay in the same state of equilibrium. But this talks about finding a new state of equilibrium. Life is ever changing. And as a person, if you don't find your new equilibrium, this may result in you not performing at your optimum and not achieving the success you desire. So let me move on to the next principle before I turn this into a chemistry lesson. The second one is be jealous about your development. And this means that you must know your gaps in relations to where you are, where you want, and where you want to go. Be clear about what you want to get out of your role, if it's a new role, or even if it's in the current role. Is it to increase the depth of your knowledge on a certain subject, or to develop leadership skill? So which muscle do you want to exercise when you are in a role? Don't be like those people at the gym who hop from one machine to another without a sense of purpose. So yes, you can do a circuit which consists of different machines for different muscle groups, but the machines in the circuit are arranged in a specific order with a predetermined time that you are expected to spend at each machine. So you don't wander aimlessly. So have a plan for your development. Staying with the gym analogy, circuit training is for someone who is either not sure of what they need or are at a stage where they are happy with their levels of fitness and want to maintain overall muscle mass. So if you want a six-pack, you're not going to spend your time at the gym. You're going to need to spend your time at the gym, at the section that caters for core muscle training. So once you've identified what it is that you want to do, then you must identify the actions that will get you there. I have observed that people are quick to enroll on courses and on PhD programs. This might get you career success. So there's no guarantee there. And I know that it seems contradictory coming from someone like me, someone who loves to learn. But formal education must be supported by work experience and other supporting mechanisms like mentorship and career sponsorship. So a career sponsor is different to a mentor in that a mentor advises the mentee and a sponsor advocates for their protege. So a mentor can be anyone in a position of experience, and it doesn't have to be someone who is senior. It could even be somebody who is junior to you. And a sponsor is usually at a senior level, a senior executive level. So mentors would help you to build a career vision, and a sponsor will drive that career vision. So find people who will play these roles in your life. One can have many mentors who advise on different aspects of life. I have many mentors, and most of them we don't have a formal agreement in place. Some of them don't even know that I regard them as mentors, but I know who to call and forward. And sometimes this is the easiest way to do it. With regards to a sponsor, I recall having a sponsor in mind, although at the time we did not label it as such. It was years ago. These concepts had not been popularized by then. But what he did for me was to make sure that I got the relevant experience as a metallurgist, and often cited me as his stand-in for his production superintendent role. So that really gave me good experience, and also helped me, put me in the sight of people that needed to know that I exist at the plant. So the third principle is on the ability to pivot. This talks to adaptability. Jenny Blake, the author of Pivot, The Only Move That Matters is Your Next One, defines pivot as doubling down on what is working to make a purposeful shift in a new related direction. Pivoting is intentional, methodical process for nimbly navigating career changes. However, before you pivot, you must ask yourself, what do I know? What skills and experience do I have? What do I need for the next step? So self-awareness and self-development are still critical at this stage. Don't look at your career projections as a ladder to climb, but rather as a jungle gym, where sometimes you have to move laterally to move up. So I started my career in the mining industry, but quite soon after starting, I knew that I would want to move to a more strategic role rather than stay in operations. So the bulk of my time spent in the mines was in doing courses that I thought would bring me closer to the goal and getting the necessary experience. So that's when I registered for my master's in industrial engineering and moved away from the technical mineral processing degree. I adopted the company strategies on using Six Sigma methodology. And this is what got me a job at SARS, at the South African Revenue Services. And it's also what got me my first job in banking. So while I knew that I didn't want to ultimately end up in working in a mine or in a plant somewhere in a mining town, I continued to do my best in my job at the time. And I took up all exposures that I was given. Because you can't leave before you leave. I think most people decide that this is not for me. And then they start self-sabotaging and doing things and not doing their best. Just because you don't think that what you are doing at this point is in line with where you want to be, it doesn't mean that you must not give it your all. So what does it take to groom young female leaders? It takes self-awareness, a passion for self-development, and an ability to pivot from that young woman. When one has this, when you have all these characteristics, all that a manager has to do is support you, provide opportunities for growth, and provide mentorship. So I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna stop right there and allow opportunities for questions, because I'm aware that I took it in a direction that I interpreted the topic in a way that I understood. So I'm gonna stop here for questions so that people can then get out of it what they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pomaseki. I don't think I speak only for myself when I say we are truly inspired and truly mentored. Firstly, I would like to thank you also for honoring us with your invitation. It's honestly, I don't know, it's amazing to have a person of your caliber to be in such an event with us, especially as a branch. And I remember looking at today's webinar and 12 o'clock with the Triple BEE webinar women's series. Our deputy president was talking, and what I took from her wording is that as women, if you are comfortable with being the only woman in the boardroom, then the problem starts there. Because once women become comfortable being the only one in the boardroom, the only one in the executive committee, the problem starts there because you prevent other women from being lobbying. And with us being the majority of the people in the boardroom areas, the executive committee, and the corporate world, it starts within us. And what I took from you is the passion and also the support and grooming of young people and young women in specific. So thank you very much for giving us the tool of how to lead in excellency and in business. And I think I'll be handing over to Ms. Faith Matiani, who will be explaining more and rendering the question and answer session. Firstly, I'd like to ask a question for myself before I hand it over to her, is that being a woman, especially a Black woman, firstly, with our current system, you are prevented. You have the first obstacle is your gender. The second obstacle is your color. So how did you overcome all those challenges given your color and your gender?
Sure. Wow, I guess yeah, I guess sure, what a difficult question, because I don't know that the obstacles have really been overcome per se, but I think it's really doing your best, like I said, and identifying people to support you. So when you do your best, it's nobody can dispute it. It's there in your face. So there's no way that you can at least say that I can't do the job and I can't do the job well. That's one of the things. And the second one is really identifying support structures. So in where you work, making sure that you work well with your colleagues, you get the support that you need from your boss, and you form relationships in the different levels, different areas, because ultimately it's about when people are talking about promotion, it's about how many of the collective know you and know your work. So it's really always about that. And also just how you do that as well is just volunteer for work assignments outside of the scope of your job description. So I'm not married to my job description. I do what needs to get done to get us to deliver the strategy of the company.
Thank you very much, and handing over to Ms. Faith Matiani.
But just to add, I believe that we as individuals, we need to introspect ourselves in order to find our purpose in life. You need to introspect yourself in order to know what you want, who you are, and where are you going to start into implementing whatever that you want, right? So Mrs. Leti Nkosazana has a question. Over to you.
Actually, I have a question for Ms. Museki. Actually, as you go, what can I say, as you climb the ladder higher and higher, it gets to a point whereby you don't really get along with people, especially when you are that kind of a woman that stands up for yourself. So you said it's very important as a woman. Now, let's say, for example, in the BMF, we have a constitution that guides us. And it happens that you have to get an approval from your senior before you can be able to do something of which you feel that it's of a good purpose. And that person is not willing to give you that go ahead. How do you overcome such obstacles in a way? Because now I believe in following the constitution and respecting my colleagues and doing things by the book. But sometimes the book doesn't favor us as women, honestly speaking. It doesn't favor us most of the time, especially if you have to report to someone. Because if you can pay attention, Miss Lebogang is deputy secretary, meaning that she has to speak to her secretary in her branch. I'm the deputy secretary in the PSCC, meaning that I have to communicate with my secretary at the provincial level. I don't just do things. So how do I overcome such obstacles?
So things that are in the constitution should not be an obstacle. I think what happens is that we don't agree up front what our expectations are of each other. We don't agree what good looks like, and then we don't plan ahead. So then that creates friction in the system. So when you understand what your role is, and you understand what you need to achieve, there should be very little friction, especially if other people around you also understand what you need to achieve. But be that as it may, there will be people that are not going to buy into your strategy and your direction. And this is where then you need to speak to the people's heart. You need to understand what matters to them. And a lot of things, successes, the people, especially when you need to collaborate and buy in, comes in when you speak to the heart of people, understand what is important to them, and then you position whatever it is that you need to do in terms of how it will benefit them, how it's important for the organization. So once you link it to organizational strategy, organizational plan, and you then link it to what matters to that person, then you are going to find that you have very little friction. So I think sometimes we don't spend enough time understanding what's important to Mpo. And then when you come with something, because I don't see that it's important, I'm not gonna really support it. But it's also just making people understand also why something is important, because in as much as I have things that are important to me that I think are critical and should be achieved in the organization, all have blind spots, and we all, I believe that people are all open to being persuaded. So if you can also then come with your point of view in terms of why it's important and why it will serve the organization better, you'll find that 95% of the things that you put forward get agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Mpomiseki. I think you have answered the questions on a nice level and understood.
By the way, I was
last question.
I was also a deputy chairperson before I became chairperson.
Really?
Oh.
Yes, I think I'd also like to elaborate on what my question, actually my next question was actually going to be an elaboration on what Ms. Makosazana said, because I think before the webinar, me and her also had a conversation of women always deputizing. It's always deputizing, because funny, you also said it yourself, you were first a deputy chairperson. So how do you overcome such obstacles, whereas you have to, as a woman, you have to work twice as hard to be recognized? And then you find that in some instances you work even harder than the person who's holding that very same position. But in a way that because you're a woman, it becomes a disadvantage for you in a way. Because looking at myself, I'm a deputy secretary. Looking at Makosazana, we're deputy secretary. But we excel in our work and we love it. I'm not saying we belittle the position, but it becomes a question that actually a lot of my other members of the BMF has asked me that, why is it always that women are deputizing?
Yeah, you guys, where are the young men? I think the young men would go easy on me. So it's the reason why I'm now chair is mainly because I also had that observation that why must women always be deputies? So when the position came up, I encouraged other women to take up the position, but we ended up settling on me, basically. Not settling, but in terms of just having discussions and planning in terms of we want a woman, and then it ended up that I was the one that was then available at the time, and I took up the baton. So I think, and just if I think about the learnings in the journey towards the elections and how then we did things, I think as women we must learn to lobby a bit more. I think men have understood how to lobby when it comes to elections, and as much as we are a professional organization, when it comes to elections, there are a bit of politicking that happens. So you need to lobby. So you need to understand the political environment, and it goes back to talking about that awareness. understanding the political environment, and then just working through and making sure that things align. You talk to the right people, you get the right level of support to get you through that to that position. But I think the important thing is the first thing is to put your hand up. So I guess for me, the question would be, when the committee was nominated and when there were elections, how many women put their hand up to be the chairperson of TUT branch, to be the chairperson of PSC? So I think that's the place to start. How many young women put their hand up? How many of you said, no, ask the person who you were supposed to deputize, say, okay, so why can't I be the secretary and be the deputy? You know, so I think it's also just conversations and just us taking more than asking for permission. So I think sometimes we ask for permission more as women, more than just taking, whereas men just decide and they take. In terms of just they decide, I'm gonna do it, and then they do it. Whereas sometimes we want to have everything align and be perfect. So I think that's also something perfect. Done is better than perfect. That's something that's a mantra that I try my level best to adopt. Done is better than perfect. So I think women, let's not wait for perfect conditions. Conditions will never be perfect.
Done is better than perfect. Thank you very much. And I think that was all with all the questions. And thank you. You've answered them according to the level that you know of, which is excellency. Now handing over to Ms. Faith Matiane.
Just to add information to our viewers, we have mentorship masterclasses with BCN Consultancy. For more information, you can contact me on 081751 1514 or inbox me on Facebook. My name is Faith Matiane. Now I'm going to introduce our word of support from Itumelo Mavos, our former chairperson of BSCC TUT Pretoria and former PSCC Gauteng secretary. Over to you, Itumeleng.
Good evening, fellow Mbogotos, and also good evening to Ausimpo, and without also forgetting the viewers that are streaming the event live on Facebook, all protocol observed. And I must say that the quality of questions and also the quality of the information Ms. Simpo has presented to us, it should make us men also question ourselves as to what are we doing to ensure that we have more women in BMF structures, particularly student chapter. That's where often we lack having enough women in our committee, and also as members, it is usually us men who lead such committees. And without attempting to hijack the event this evening, I'll be just brief, and I'll just say that I remember it was in 2017. I was doing my first year at TUT. I came across a BMF poster, and I had so many questions as to what is this organization, what does it do and stuff. So I took the numbers that were written and I contacted the gentleman. It was Kumkani, but he has already left the BMF now. And I was like, no, I can see this organization. It speaks to Black people, particularly Black students. So what is it about? He told me on all information. I also went on to the site and I gathered more information. Then at that point, that gentleman was already leaving the BMF student chapter at TUT, and he told me that, my brother, look, I am leaving next year, and basically we don't have a branch. So you are my last hope to revive this branch and at least try gather more first years since you are starting. So it was at that point that I also managed to gather around more members. Then that's where I also got to learn more about myself and also leadership, we established the branch to a point where it is right now. And never in my wildest dream did I ever think that the TUT BMF branch would be at this level. And never in my wildest dream did I ever think that the TUT BMF branch would win the Best Branch Award last year at the award ceremony in Midrand. So it is quite impressive that I myself, I am no longer there. I'm no longer a BSCC member or a PSCC member, but it brings joy to my heart to see that the branch is still alive, and more especially that it is being led by women. It is being led by women of the caliber of Lebogang, Faith, Matia, Neleti. It is excelling and it is moving at an accelerating speed. So I also believe that it's quite an example to other BMF branches, not in Gauteng only, but nationally. It is an inspiration to PSCC committees around the country and also the NSCC. So we should, as men, we should realize that within the BMF SC, let us step aside and also give women a chance to lead. It shouldn't be also, as you said, Labukhang, it shouldn't always be deputizing. So I'm quite impressed with where the branch is heading right now. And I intend to stay there and assist where I can. So without wasting further time, I'd just like to say, Awesome Paul, thank you very much. And I believe we'll be closing Women's Month in style. And also to Lebogang, Uleti Makosazane, Faith Matiane, I say thanks to you guys for ensuring that the event sits today. And also not forgetting the BMF team at the head office, Kulukazi Mtebele and her team. We thank you guys for assisting us and ensuring that the event sits today. We had a beautiful poster for Awesome Paul and also for the viewers. So moving forward, this is how the BMF student chapter should always be moving. Let us bring the women in the organization and move, and also make sure that we challenge the status quo that we always believed that we always believed that it should be men leading in such spaces. But today was a demonstration that no, it shouldn't always be like that. So yeah, I also thank the viewers who also took their time to ensure that they joined this important discussion this evening. And yeah, thank you everyone. Yeah, my name. Okay.
Thank you very much, Itumeleng. And firstly, I'd like to first recognize Itumeleng as the person who's actually encouraged most of us as women to step up and take role and take up space in the committee. I remember him and our fellow chairperson, Letoko Nolo Baho, are the ones who actually approached me and said that we love your energy, we need you in the committee. And had it not been for them, I don't think myself and Faith would have found ourselves in such positions. So thank you very much. And I'd firstly like to thank Ms. Mpomoseki for honoring our invitation. We know a person of your caliber and we know of your busy schedule that you're a very busy person, but you took the time and the initiative to actually honor our invitation. It is such an honor and a blessing towards us. And I think Itumeleng has already said, given appreciation to almost everyone. And also I'd like to highlight on the head office, Kulugani, especially Mamelo, who has helped us during this planning of the webinar. And also thanking the PSCC and the NSCC and Itumeleng and my fellow facilitators, Faith and Lady. Thank you very much. And I think this will be the end of our webinar. Thank you to all the viewers who've joined in. And I hope you guys all stay safe and you sanitize. And for the last time, I say, igama lamakhosikazi malibongwe, as we close off Women's Month with a bang.
Well done to you guys.